What is going on, guys? This is the Inside the Podcast, episode number 50. And today we're breaking down the New York Giants taking on the Washington Commanders at MetLife. It's the first time these two teams are meeting. Um, and this is a Giants team that needs to get going before it's too late. If they want to, even have any sort of hope for the playoffs or do any sort of stuff like that, they're going to have to really get going. And, this offense has to, step up, you know, um, when Daniel Jones eventually gets back from his neck injury, he's got to start playing some better football if he even wants a job, in his near future with the Giants. Because Daniel Jones has been poor. He's not throwing for touchdowns at all. And that was, he didn't throw for many last year either. He only threw for 15, but he also didn't turn over the ball. Um, you know, really at all. I think he threw 5 interceptions last year and had one of the lowest, if not the lowest, interception rate of any starting QB. And now he steps in, a lot more pressure, a lot more that he's gonna have to do. Brian Dable, and Mike Kafka gave him a more complex type offense, and he has not been able to do anything. And yeah, that's partially, the wide receivers, the offensive line, but we just saw Tyrod Taylor have that pretty much the same offensive line, same weapons, and he sort of made it a game, and he was getting the ball out a lot quicker than what Daniel Jones was doing. He was playing a lot better than Daniel Jones. He was just doing everything better than what Daniel Jones was doing. And for Daniel, he just signed that 4-year huge extension, and it's not really paying off well for the Giants right now. You give him $40 million, you expect him to be your franchise QB, and he's playing very bad. And I know the offensive line has been bad. I understand that, and they're ranked 32nd in the league, they're the worst in the league, but you're gonna have to take some shots. You're gonna have to take some risks and really trust in your wide receivers, and he's just not doing that. He is not throwing the ball deep at all. Um, and Tyrod was, he had Darius Slayton a few times on those fade routes and all that sort of good stuff, and he completed those passes, right? And now we question what is going on with Daniel Jones. And I know he got a neck injury in that game against Miami, but man, it's tough to watch this offense. I'm not really blaming this defense that much. I don't think that they've been the problem because they've kept them in some of these games for the New York Giants, and the Giants just have not been able to put points up. Field goals are not going to cut it. You're not going to win a game when you put up 9 points. Okay, that's against any team, whether you're playing the Commanders, the Bills, any sort of, and even if you're playing a good team like Philadelphia or the Cowboys, if you put up 9 points, those teams will come back very quickly. I know the Bills struggled a lot more because just a really good game plan from Wake Martindale, and props to him for having a good week. But defense can't put up any points, and when you don't put up any, when the offense doesn't put up any points, you're not going to have much success in this NFL, in this league. And we break down, obviously the loss. We broke down that loss, but I thought, there were a few positives in that game. And just through the first 6 games, I think Deontay Banks has looked really good in his rookie year, um, locking down a lot of good players. When he played against, Jalen Waddle, pretty good wide receiver too. He only allowed 18 yards. And that's really, really good stuff. And, we didn't know what to expect from Deontay Banks. We know he's a physical, cornerback against these wide receivers, but, props to, props to him for stepping up on this defense. Cause when James Bradbury left in and, you bring in Adoree Jackson, and James Bradbury's been killing it on Philly, and Noah Jackson hasn't really met expectations, in my opinion. I don't think he's played great in a Giants uniform, and I think Deontay Banks has really stepped up really well. And there's really, only really all the positives I have are from the defense, right? I think Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke have been a really good duo. Bunch of tackles for loss, just a bunch of tackles in general. And Okereke has really led to some of those interceptions thrown by the opposing QBs. In the Bills game, he had Josh Allen throw a pick that he batted into McFadden's hand. Um, and he gave Jason Pinnock a pick six essentially in that game against Miami. Uh, and it's annoying that this offense is frustrating because they put in a lot of different things, right? They drafted Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee to be a deep threat. They can't throw the ball deep because Daniel Jones doesn't see it, and in his opinion, he doesn't think he has enough time to throw it, which he probably does, even though they don't give him much time to begin with. But Tyrod Taylor essentially had the same offensive line that Daniel Jones did against the Bills. I know Justin Pugh was elevated from the practice squad, but you know in all due respect, Justin Pugh is no all pro Hall of Fame type guard or wherever he was playing. It's just Justin Pugh, straight off the couch. And Tyrod Taylor did it. We need Daniel Jones to throw the ball more, and they got Darren Waller for essentially nothing, and they're definitely using him, but they can't do some of the things that they probably want to just because of the fact the QB isn't playing well or the offensive line just can't hold down the opposing team's defense, right? And if you really want um if you really want a chance to somehow find a way to make it into this playoffs, you're gonna have to win a lot of games in a row. And I mean, I'll get into the schedule, in a few minutes, but with this offense in general, I don't know if I really see the Giants making the playoffs. I know in our preseason take about the Giants, we had them making the playoffs at 10-7, ceiling 11-6, and we're probably lucky if we get 7 wins. I mean, we're probably really in the conversation for potential you know sweepstakes for Caleb Williams. That's just how bad this team is right now. I mean, they're 1-5. Last year they were 5-1. Complete step back from not only the players, the coaching staff too. We're not gonna not get on the coaches for this. I mean, especially in that game against Seattle, you had 11 days to prepare for it, and you come out flat and you don't run anything well. That was a Seattle Seahawks defense that was not good, and you gave them that win because you turned the ball over too many times. And the pick six still. So there's been times the Giants have been able to win games, like even in this Bills game, in that Bills game. I mean, they're at the 1 yard line. First, Tyrod audibles to a run that gets stuffed, and then I know Darren Waller got held in the play, but I mean, either way, you had 5 other opportunities in the red zone to score and you didn't. So I mean, of course your schedule is harder, but you have to find ways to win. That's what makes good teams. They find ways to win and they steal games. The Giants have not stolen one game, and I don't even really say, oh yeah, they beat the Cardinals. You shouldn't have been in that situation where you were down 20-0. You shouldn't have been in that situation. You're just lucky your QB came out in the second half and finally, picked up his crap and, started playing well. And getting back to Jones, I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier. His job is very much in jeopardy. If he returns after this week against the Commanders, obviously I think Tyrod Taylor is starting this week tomorrow. And if Daniel Jones doesn't have it against the Jets, the Raiders in these upcoming games, if he is able to play, you could very well see Daniel Jones not being a Giant for his full 4 years. I mean, they could very much cut him and save a lot of money. Um, you know, the thing is, you kind of had to pay him. I know 40 million was outrageous. I didn't see 40 million coming, honestly. I saw maybe 32 to 35 million, no more than that. I did not see 40 million. I mean, that's what Dak Prescott's making, and a bunch of other QBs, and they give him that contract, and he's just not particularly good right now. And it's kind of hard if you're going to be in those sweepstakes for Caleb Williams when the Panthers aren't winning games and the Bears have that pick. So I mean, you know, right now the Bears have two top picks, and I know Justin Fields is injured, so we don't know how much, um, you know, how bad the Bears are going to be essentially. Um, and you also got reports that the Giants aren't looking at any trades. So I mean, it really questions me to Shane. Uh, what is he going to do at the deadline? Is he going to take, is he going to trade some pieces, or is he just going to let this team roll out and kind of expect for a top pick? I mean, that's probably what he's thinking right now. Is he can't really do much, right? I don't think the Giants are in a um, good place for cap. They can't go out and get a big time guy. I don't think. And I don't think they should, anyways. I mean, they're just that one player is not gonna, turn them into a 500 team, and they have to, we'll get it more into the off season when I make, that pod, but they have to draft well. They have to draft well. I mean, we look at it in all the leagues and all the teams. You look at Philadelphia, how they drafting Jalen Hurts to be their franchise. You see what the Jags did, drafting Trevor Lawrence. You see what the Bengals did, drafting Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. For the Eagles, getting back to them, Jalen Carter falling to them. They grabbed him, and he's been one of the best rookie, defenders in this league, and he's very much in the conversation to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. But you look at the Giants, and you just see how many busts they have drafted, and not many, guys that you still look at the team and say, oh, he'd be a big impact. I mean, we obviously look at Saquon Barkley pick. That was a good pick. Obviously, injury history has not been in his favor, but he's still been a good pick, and he changes that offense a lot. You look at Kayvon Thibodeau. I think he's looked a lot better this year, and I think he could be a good player. But then you look at guys like Evan Neal, and in the past, like Eli Apple or DeAndre Baker, like all those guys, um, just bad. And you passed up on very good players. And I know we don't predict, you can't just predict the future of how they're going to do, but I just, that was also the Dave Gettleman era, and that was a bad era. So that's kind of it. But I think Joe Shane has done a fine job as Giants GM. It's only his second year, so I don't really want to get on him too much. They're just lacking talent in my book, and when they start drafting well and they start bringing in better talent offensively too, I think this team could be a lot better. 2 to 4 years down the road. Um, and if the Giants lose on Sunday, which is very much in the conversation because they have not looked good at all offensively. Defensively they can hold their ground against a lot of teams, but this offense is so bad. We look at the upcoming schedule. You play the Commanders this week, then you got the Jets next week. Then you got the Raiders on the road, then you got Dallas on the road, and then you got Washington on the road. So, those are winnable games because I don't think the Commanders are honestly that good, right? I don't think they are, and I know the Raiders are having a lot of problems, even though they have a decent record. And the Jets are, the Jets. It's not trying to be disrespectful, but they are a solid team. The Jets. it'll be interesting how Zach Wilson, plays because he has looked better, very much so. And we get into the Q and A now. Uh, First question. We have two questions today. Of course, leave a comment below, leave a question. Um, so we get more questions. But either way, if we lose to the Commanders, is the season over and go full quote unquote tank mode? Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor won't lead this team very far. So, very much so. This season could be very much over if they fall to 1-6, because that is not easy to come back from. Even 1-5 is not easy to come back from. Like, even if you win 4 out of those 5 games somehow and you just lose to Dallas, you're still not in a great spot. If you go 4-1, you'll be 5-6 at that point. And that's very hard because this NFC isn't that bad. There's a lot of teams that are on the come up. The Lions are on the come up. They could very much be in the playoff picture this year. There's a lot of teams that are just really good, and the Giants are just not very good this year. And also the final question is, don't you find it frustrating that Andrew Thomas, after the Giants beat him, apparently isn't healthy at all for the bad hamstring? So hamstring injuries can range anywhere from 3 to 8 weeks, and I'm assuming it's one of those really bad hamstring injuries. I mean, we all know what Kadarius Toney did with his hamstring. He just didn't want to be a New York Giant anymore, so that's something else. But I think Andrew Thomas is very good, and I'm very glad they paid him. His injury does suck because that just is a huge hole in the offensive line. You just can't really replace an Andrew Thomas. It's like how you can't really replace a Trent Williams. Um, Like, it's obviously an annoying injury for sure, and I hope he is back very soon. I hope he's back before that Dallas game, because if he's not back for Micah Parsons, long day against them. But anyways, thank you guys for tuning into the podcast. Of course, it's been episode 50 of this podcast. Of course, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload these podcasts. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.